Okay, we're now recording, and I want to switch you to host now.
All right, it's making me download some sort of installer, so hopefully that'll run quickly.
I think you have to switch because we're listed as the host.
Well, we are the host, but she's becoming the presenter. We're hosting the meeting. She's the presenter.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we're working on it. We're starting to get something here. There you are.
Hello, I'm back.
We can see you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you see my screen? Let's see if I can figure this out.
I cannot see your screen yet. I think you have to press the share screen at the top. That's between the phone and the video.
Yeah, the left little pop-up toolbar.
All right. Can you
There we go. Yeah. We can see your screen.
Excellent. Whew. And you can hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we have 2 concurrent sessions happening right now. So most of them stayed in the other room for the beginning part, but you might see people come and go throughout the hour we have here. Let me see if we can get you a little bit bigger here. There we go. We can still see you, and we can see your presentation. Now, audience, the microphone is right up here, and so she might not hear you. So if you ask a question, someone close to the microphone will have to relay it. I'm going to kind of float back and forth to make sure IT is working in both rooms. But yeah, I think we're good to go. So thanks for coming to this section. You know, social media, we see that it has lots of opportunities, but a lot of us don't know what they are or when to use them. So I invited Sarah Winnicke to present because mainly I found out about her via social media. Yeah, we both went to Kansas State, but our times there did not overlap, and so we both have an interest in prairie birds, but that's everything I know about Sarah, I know from her social media account. So I thought she was being an expert, and she's won awards. What award have you won recently?
I just won like a top student science communication award at a science communication conference in like February, I think.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So anyway, welcome, Sarah, and go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Let me know if this isn't syncing, because I can't see your screen, obviously, so I can't tell. Thank you. Again, my name is Sarah Winnicke. I'm a master's student at Kansas State University. I'm finishing up here in the next week, actually. I'll be moving to Illinois from here. But today, as you said, I want to talk a little bit about social media and using social media to educate and communicate science, specifically Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, only because those are the platforms that I use the most frequently. And I am by no means a professional communicator. There are people who actually go to school to do this. I've been learning from them and absorbing from them over the last few years, but I'm a scientist by trade and not actually a communicator. So we'll see how this goes. Let's see. So first of all, why would you communicate science information or conservation information? Sometimes it's because you have an actual plan that you need to have happen, right? So here we have salt marsh sparrows, we have groups of researchers trying to communicate with the federal government that these birds are in danger. And we can get the federal government to care by communicating to other individuals about these birds. So sometimes there's a very clear, actionable reason to communicate science. Sometimes it's to actually influence not necessarily the government, but the actions of individual people. So here's an article about removing cowbird eggs from songbird nests. So this comes up every year. This article in Audubon is communicating the science behind why individuals should not be doing this behavior. You may also want to inform individuals about opportunities and events. So here is an Audubon group advertising a field trip, asking folks to join. And finally, you might want to communicate science or conservation just to inspire people. So here's a recent paper out last week from a friend of mine who's actually an Ohio birder growing up, who was looking at tiger sharks and seeing what birds they ate, which is, again, it's not going to affect actions. It's not going to make people change their behavior. It's just going to inspire people to care about birds. So why would you do this online? It's obviously easier to talk to people in person. It's not as easy for me to communicate with you halfway across the country, but a lot of people are online. So in this map, you see the number of people per country that have continual internet access. It's a lot of people. Plus, you can do it from your home. So here's my cat. I can sit on social media and communicate with a worldwide audience without having to pull my cat off my lap. You can do this with websites. So here, for example, is the Cincinnati Chapters website. Beautiful website. Here's my website. The problem with these websites is that you only generally get audiences to your website if they're already interested. You know, they're not just going to find this as they're surfing the web. And it means that you're going to have many, many fewer people interacting with your conservation goals or your research, anything you want to communicate. Here are the analytics for my website. Just in the last month, you know, only 49 people have come to my website, and probably most of those people were actually me, because I go on there to find quick links to some of my papers. In contrast, you have these already made social media platforms that have billions of users every month. So these are old stats. These are about 2 years old now, but in June of 2017, you had 2 billion people using Facebook every single month. And these numbers are continuing to grow. So why not use these platforms to reach a broader audience than you would otherwise on the internet? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the platforms. I'm going to talk about how you would craft a post for these platforms, how you would drive engagement with that post, and then talk about some of the logistics. So how often should you do this? How can you gauge the success of the things that you're trying to communicate? What apps can help you do that? And then finally, if you have time, I'll just talk through like an example post for each of these 3 sites. So first of all is Twitter. So this is my favorite social media platform. A lot of scientists use this to communicate with each other and to others. Twitter, you create a tweet. You are limited to 280 characters, including spaces, which can be a little frustrating. On average, the average tweet has about 30 characters total. You can send links. So this particular individual shared a link from the Journal of Virology, and so then anyone who follows this Andrew individual can see this link. Twitter is also kind of where hashtags first became important. So a hashtag is simply a phrase with a little pound symbol in front of it that links people with a common theme. So everyone tweeting with hashtag Game of Thrones would be tweeting to a community that's interacting with this Game of Thrones television show. And finally, you each have your own profile. You can get a profile photo. You can change your name as frequently as you want. So the part that says Sarah Winicki, I can change. But I can't change my handle. The at SK Winicki, that's permanent. You can also search Twitter for people. It'll tell you who you can follow, things like that. Another cool thing about Twitter is what we call threads. So, you know, you're limited to this 280 characters, but then you can do multiple tweets that are linked together. So you can see on this bottom left, people who interact with this first tweet can hit show this thread, and you can see a whole conversation about this particular topic. Other times, as you can see on the right, some people actually indicate how far along you are in a thread, which makes it really accessible so people realize about how much they're getting into with this conversation. Some other less-known features of Twitter, so there's this thing called lists. So people can make a list, and they can put members in the list, and then people can subscribe to that list. So if you're interested in following or learning from scientists and researchers, you can go to this public list, subscribe to it, and see the members and interact with them through the list. Finally, you can have verified accounts. So this Jessica Meir here on the bottom, she has this little blue check mark next to her name. That's because she is important. According to Twitter standards, she's actually a NASA astronaut. So that allows people to know that they're following a real important person. Mrs. Bowers, who is a high school teacher that I chatted with through the Skype a Scientist program, excuse me, she is not verified. So that's just a little bit about Twitter. Facebook is still the most readily used platform in the world, social media platform. Although there's a few in kind of Southeast Asia that are growing in popularity. But in Facebook, or in North America, we're talking about 50% of people on the internet use Facebook, which is a lot. So in Facebook, you have similar goals. You can make a post. In this case, you're not limited to a certain number of characters. You can type as much as you want. You can get direct messages just like you can on Twitter. It alerts you to notifications, things like that. There are also groups. So here are some shortcuts to different groups that I follow, like a group of Kansas birders. So everybody in this group can post and share with different people. They don't have to be friends. They just have to be part of this group. You have a personal profile, like on Twitter. With Facebook, you can share as much information as you want. So here's my entire school and employment history. You also don't have to share this information if you don't want it to be public. And then people can go on to your page and see the posts that you have made. Like here's my delightful sister dressing like a suffragette to go to high school, because that's what she does. On Facebook, you can also post kind of like larger collections of things. You can create photo albums, which can have, hundreds of photos, unlike on Twitter, where you're limited to 4. You can also do things like create ads, make groups, and plan events. There's just more functionality to Facebook than there is to something like Twitter. And finally, YouTube. A lot of people don't think of YouTube as a great place to communicate, but it's one of the most frequently used websites on the internet. So if you are an internet user in the United States in any of these age groups, chances are the majority are using YouTube at least once a month. So if you're between the ages of 18 and 24, 96% of internet users will end up on YouTube. So why not use it to communicate to the public? So YouTube is a video-only platform. So you upload videos. You have your own profile where people can go to learn about you and can access all of your videos. You can make a short description of the actual video. It'll keep track of how many people come and view it. You also can get upvotes and downvotes to see how people are responding to the video, and then you can actually look into some of the analytics, the stats of that. You can make big playlists that autoplay, so if you want people to be attracted to a single video and then see some more, it'll autoplay for them if they're interested. And again, you have your own profile, your own page with things like playlists where you can put, for instance, all of the horrifying videos of baby birds getting eaten by predators, which is like half of my YouTube output. And then the other half is pictures of happy birds that I find when I'm out birding. So that's a different playlist. So you have these 3 social media platforms, each of which have different restrictions and different abilities. How do you make a successful post to communicate your goals on these platforms? And so first of all, think critically about your intended audience. Who are you trying to target with your posts? Are you trying to target other Audubon members? Are you trying to target people who should know about Audubon but don't? Are you trying to target the general public who doesn't think about birds on an average day or about conservation or any of these topics? Think through the kind of words that you would need to reach these sort of people. Make your posts real and relatable. Draw examples from this audience that you're thinking of. So if you're thinking about birders, talk about the birds that they would see in their yards, that they'd be familiar with. remember that inspiring people can also be real. So this doesn't have to have like an actual clear goal for them. It may just be that you're trying to inspire with pictures of beautiful birds or something like that. Keep this simple. Remember that we're not computers. We don't just read a website and absorb everything. Make sure that you have this simple take-home message that your users will be able to remember at least a week from now. Avoid jargon, avoid terms that aren't commonly used, and sometimes that's a little hard to identify. So I study how baby birds grow up, and in the literature we call that nestlings. These are altricial birds in nests, but the words nestlings, the words altricial, those aren't necessarily common words used by the types of audiences that I'm targeting. So I'll switch to saying things like baby bird when I'm looking for a broader audience that's just not just scientists or something like that. And think about how your post is marketed. Will people be able to find this again if necessary? Do you have commonly searched words in that post that if they forget and they need to come back, they'll be able to type in Audubon birdwalk and find it? And this is the hard part, and unfortunately, you just have to keep trying. But I can give you some tips on ways to help this message that you decide upon, help it propagate through these different audiences. So if you think about which platforms would be best for your intended audience, I kind of have the impression that a lot of Instagram users are younger than somebody who might be on Facebook or LinkedIn, but the numbers aren't really that different. So maybe the oldest folks in the group are using Facebook a little bit more frequently than they're using Instagram, but we're still talking just percentage points. More importantly, I think, than thinking about age or social group or something like that, is just thinking about the actual reach of these platforms. So somewhere like on Twitter, where I have a few thousand followers, I can reach these thousands of people and the people with whom they interact. Whereas something on Facebook, I'm mostly only friends with people I know in real life, so I only have 800 friends here. So I could only reach those people and the people with whom they interact. So already more limited if I'm using Facebook. Something like YouTube, I only have like 80-something subscribers, but these posts are also, so you can subscribe to a channel and you'll get notifications when they post things. But you can also watch videos off of channels that you don't subscribe to. So I have, 25,500 people watching, my videos for a total of 76,000 minutes. So surprisingly, a larger reach than I anticipated on this particular platform. And so think through the number of people that you're interacting with and who those people might be on your different social media platforms. You can share posts between sites. So here's a post on Instagram that was shared on Facebook. So the picture pops up, the caption pops up. This is because Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, so the platforms work really well together. Versus something like YouTube, if you would just put a YouTube link into Facebook, it'll pop up a little like preview, but it won't show the video at all. So people would have to go and click on that, and maybe this isn't engaging enough to get them to do that. Versus if you actually upload the clip independently into Facebook, it will autoplay, so people will be seeing this and interacting with it without having to go and click to a third-party site like you would if you were just sharing from YouTube. So I would recommend, instead of just copying and pasting the same thing between the different sites, really think critically about the audiences and the restrictions on each platform and try to make different messages on these different platforms, even if you're trying to communicate the same thing. So you can share articles and websites. So when you share an article on Facebook like this, it'll just pop up a little link. You can click on this, it'll go straight to that website, and then you can add some comments to it that'll pop up at the top if you'd like. Similarly, if you put it on Twitter, so this is an article that this individual user shared, so you can share up to 280 characters about it, and then users can click on this and go to that link. YouTube is a little bit less clean like that. So here is just the description of one of the videos that I posted. I just posted my website here. They'd actually have to copy paste that into the URL bar So links are a little bit less helpful on YouTube. So in general, if you have these links, or you have photos, does this matter? Is it better to just put a really nice, catchy, 280 character message, or does it help to actually add something? So here's a post that I posted just last week where I'm trying to communicate that people should keep their cats inside. And this post got, 102 likes. If you click on this little bar on Twitter, it'll tell you how many people have interacted with your tweet. So, over 6,000 people saw it, almost 160 people interacted with it. Some people retweeted it. It got a fair amount of traction. I tweeted the same exact thing, the same sort of message, but I included pictures of my rat and my cat, telling people that they should keep their cats outside because they hurt animals, and then making fun of my cat for not hurting my pet rat. So this, same message, same time frame. I didn't have any more followers, but this post got almost 10 times the interactions. So instead of 6,000 impressions, we're talking 65,000 plus. 950 likes instead of 102. So just by adding this media, I can get this message across to more people, and that's really helpful. And then I also get to share cat photos, which is fun for me. So think through the different media types and what platforms they'd work best on. So if you have something really short and sweet, a couple photos, a single video, 280 characters, send it to Twitter. If you have a whole paragraph of information that you have to tell everyone about, or a photo album or something like that, send it to Facebook. And of course, YouTube can only do standalone videos, so you're sort of limited there. Even with Facebook, though, remember, if you put a huge paragraph of information, it's actually going to cut it off and force people to click on the see more. So if you're writing a long Facebook post and you really want to communicate a particular message, write it like a newspaper article. So put that sort of punchline, the most important part, put it at the very top of that message so people who aren't going to bother to hit see more will know your main point. You can edit photos. So here's a lovely photo of a field sparrow that I took. It looks fine on its own. When you upload it to Twitter, it could get lost. So here, the little bird's cut off a little bit, and unless people go and click on that photo and pull up the full size, they're not going to see it. So it's quick and simple to just crop a photo real fast, maybe change the contrast a little bit so it's more obviously, a field sparrow. And something like that can really help engage users if you're choosing to use media to help your message come across. On Twitter, it's also possible to caption your photos. So when you upload a photo, there's a little box that says add a description, and then you can type in as long a description as you need. This will not be seen by anyone except for people who have their Twitter in accessibility mode. So these are individuals who are visually impaired. They cannot read your tweets. They cannot see your photos. But if you add this description, it will be read to them by the app. So they still know what you're talking about, and they don't feel excluded. It's a really simple thing to do that can be really helpful for people. You can do the same thing on Facebook. So when I add photos, I add some little brackets that describe my photos so that folks who can't see the photos, who are either visually impaired or whose internet doesn't load quickly, they can know what I'm talking about. You can also click on the individual photos and add individual descriptions. Or in Facebook's editing software, there's actually a generated alternative text where if you click that, it will allow you to write a description just for the visually impaired like you would on Twitter. Unfortunately, with YouTube, it doesn't help very much because if your video has audio, they'll hear it anyway. So for videos, it's the same thing as photos. I have this really cool set of videos that we take at Nest Cups with Nest cameras of the birds that we research. So here on the left is a yellow-bellied racer eating grasshopper sparrow babies. So this is a little gory, but it's a cool natural history note. It's kind of a neat story. So that snake ate all of the nestlings except for one, but that nestling was successful and ended up growing much better because it didn't have to compete with its siblings. So it's a neat thing to communicate. It's just kind of hard to see because of the low quality video. versus something like on the right here. And this is a meadowlark hatching. I didn't take this with a low-quality Nest camera. I took this with my actual camera because I happened to be at the nest while this bird was hatching. So in terms of the amount of interest you're going to get, more people are going to care about this cute little bird hatching because of the subject matter and because of the quality of the video than they would of a snake eating these blurry birds. You can also caption videos. So in those videos, nothing was happening. You know, it was only birds getting eaten or born. But if you have something like narration, it may be helpful for people who are hard of hearing if you actually include the words on the video itself. And so that's kind of hard to do. There's not many video editing softwares that do that. So there's actually a cool workaround that I found. So if you upload a video on YouTube, you can go into the video details and hit this transcriptions button. And it will pull up these subtitles. You can either select a script if you already had a script written, or you can create new subtitles. And it'll pull up this window where it'll play the video, and then every time you want to add a subtitle, you just click here, you type in what you want to say, the video will pause, and then when you hit this plus button, it will add it. So it's a really quick and easy way to help make these videos more accessible to people. And then you can download this video back off of YouTube and put it onto Facebook or Twitter because those platforms don't have any option to add captions to your videos. You can also interact with people by tagging them. So Facebook is pretty easy. You can just tag friends. You can't tag anyone who's not your friend. Versus on Twitter, you can tag anyone you want as long as you know that little handle of theirs. So this is my advisor. She plays fiddle and she looks at birds, so she's Bird Fiddler. And so if I want to talk about her, I can just type this in, and then she'll get a notification, and then everyone who interacts with it, she will also know about. One weird trick with Twitter, if you put the handle first, it will act as a reply to this person, and it won't just appear in normal Twitter. It'll only appear in that person's mentions, which is a different folder. So if you put any little character beforehand, I generally use a little period, then it will act like a normal tweet. And on YouTube, you can actually tag all of your things. So here's a video I have of a Henslow sparrow singing. So I tag the bird, I tag the location, I tag anything that I think people would be searching for and might be interested in this video. This is back when Henslow sparrows were still in the Audubon genus, which they're not anymore. And so help people find your work. This is a way that you'll reach an audience larger than just your subscribers. Finally, make sure you know which platforms you can edit. So on YouTube and Facebook, you can edit anything you want. So let's say I posted that birds are the best animal, and I included this hashtag birds versus fishes because bird scientists and fish scientists fight all the time using this hashtag, you know, very tongue-in-cheek. And say somebody else would comment and say, you know, like, correct, birds are the best. There's nothing stopping me later from changing that comment and saying that, you know, fish are superior to birds. And then this individual's comment would not fit anymore, which in this case is funny because it's a cute little joke. But if you're commenting about something like policy or politics, people changing their message could be a really big deal. That's one of the reasons that Twitter does not allow you to edit anything, which is good because you don't end up in this situation, but it's bad because all of your typos are forever. So just keep that in mind. All right, so that's a little bit about how you would add stuff to posts on these different platforms. So you have these tweets, you have these Facebook posts, you have these videos. How do you get people to be engaged with it from there? One thing is hashtags. So you can actually use hashtags in all three of these sites now. There's already big communities built around hashtags. So if you, for instance, are trying to communicate science, put SciComm, and that will link you to this community that's already talking about this. I use a coding platform to do my statistics and my analyses called R. And so whenever I have a question, I just tweet with this hashtag, RStats, and people who know what they're doing can comment on my tweet and help me with my problems, which I use all of the time. If I want to talk to other graduate students about how hard graduate school can be at times, we will tweet using this PhD chat or something like that. So getting on these platforms, reading other posts from other people that you agree with or that whose messages you want to emulate can help you learn these community hashtags, and you can start using them too to connect to broader communities. Hashtag birding is a good one, hashtag birds, hashtag bird photography. I use those a lot. You can also make your own hashtag about your own society or your own projects or your own special interests. I have friends who do it for their own pets. Just keep it short, make it descriptive, make sure it's kind of memorable or unique. Explain it somewhere. So I have a couple posts where I put my own project hashtag and an explanation of what that means. So if people search the hashtag, they know what I'm talking about. Another thing is that these are not case sensitive. So you could say prairie babies, which is my personal project hashtag that I communicate all of my research under. You can put that in all lowercase, which is fine, except that this accessibility mode for Twitter, for the vision impaired, cannot read that as two separate words. So if you capitalize the different letters, we call it camel case by putting like all of the first letters capitalized, then this actual accessibility mode can read that as two separate words, and it'll be easier for people who are disabled to interact with your posts. So it's something simple, not hard to do, but it helps people who need it. So finally, just kind of make sure that you know your audience and you know what would be helpful for them. So this is a baby dickcissel, a type of grassland bird. We put these little backpacks on them and then follow them around to see how well they're doing after their nest. So we literally chase dickcissels around. So the undergraduate that was working with me really decided that chasing dicks would be the funniest hashtag to use for this project, because we're chasing dickcissels and the actual banding code is dick in all caps. But as that could be offensive, my advisor told us we could not do that whatsoever, which was a good call, but it still was funny. So that's hashtags. Use them to connect to people. They can look kind of annoying. I didn't like them at first, but it really helps build engagement around your interests, your projects, your communities, and connects you to other people. Another thing you can do, both on Facebook and Twitter, are make polls. So this individual is tweeting about inclusion, you know, trying to make sure that people are included in scientific endeavors. And so they made a poll asking people to choose between these 4 options. And then when you click on one of those options, it'll tell you how many people had responded in that way. It's a nice way to get people to actually like stop and think about your topics. You know, people like quizzes, you know, they like BuzzFeed quizzes and things like that. Here's a way to get them to do this while talking about your research. They'll retweet it, things like that. Another option, you know, it's good for teaching. It's good, you know, to learn, as this man intends to do. One last thing, sometimes I see polls that don't apply to me, but I still want to know the answer. So it'll be something like, okay, professors, how many of you do this, this, or this to best teach your students? And I'm not a professor, so I don't have any answer to that. But because I want to become a professor, I want to know what people are saying about it. So it's great if you would include this see results option, because then people who don't want to interact and like bias your results can still do so and still learn and still engage with your posts. Another option is games. So this again can happen on Facebook or Twitter. A lot of scientists, again, this is who I follow. This happens outside of science. I'm just a scientist, so I follow scientists. Here, Dr. LaRue studies cougars. She wants to engage a community to think about cougars. And so she gets photos from community members that send her these photos. And then she has this game called Cougar or Not, where she asks people whether they think it's a cougar. And then there's a discussion in the comments. You know, here she's got 143 people commenting on this, 75 people sharing it. It's a really good way to engage with people, promote your research, have people connected. It doesn't even have to be about the message that you're trying to, you know, convey to people. It's just about getting people to start following you for when you have those messages later. Another person who does this is Dr. Hauser. She posts photos of pretty birds that she catches during her research, asks people using the hashtag bird quiz to identify them and to say why they are, what species they are, and then she'll post one of these pictures that clarifies, teaching people about bird ID and also getting them engaged with the kind of birds that she's looking for. She does this, every single week, at 10 a.m. in the morning, on whatever day of the week this is. And so she has people consistently coming back to her feed to check in and learn about birds, which is really cool. But perhaps the best example of this is what's called March Mammal Madness. So this is started by Dr. Katie Hinsey at Arizona State University. So she studies mammals, and she every year makes this big competition during March Madness, the basketball tournament, where she puts all of these different mammals up against each other, sends out these brackets to schools, gets people to be involved in this game, and all the while learn about mammals. And so people get really, really into this. They make fan arts for the different contestants. So these were 2 contestants this year, a moose and a dandelion. Because it has the word lion in it, it counts. And the engagement that she gets from this is incredible. So here in a single day, in one day, 2,795 people tweeted with her hashtag, which reached, 500,000 people. Over 6 million people saw her hashtag in a single day. And that has actual consequences for teaching science. So here are some Google results for 4 of the species of mammals that she included this year, all of which are a little bit less well known. So servals, markhors, ricales, and tenracs. And if you look on Google at the search results for those species, you can see actual spikes in engagement on the days that she dropped the bracket and then on the days where the school children were learning about it every single day. So she has, she can go then to the people who give her grants and say, look, like this fun game I started on Twitter has real consequences for teaching individuals and for engaging the public. And this is the map of everywhere where people are Googling these things. She has a countrywide reach at this point with her silly mammal game. So it's really helpful. So how often should you do this? We have all of these jokes about millennials on their phones all the time. How frequently should you be sharing if you want people to be engaged with your social media accounts? One thing to think about is longevity. So how long does a message stay relevant on these accounts? Every single day in 2016, when the last available stats were posted, people tweet 500 million times. So again, in a single day, 500 million tweets are put onto the internet. In a single day, 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube. How do you make your message stand out in this sea of tweets and videos? I've learned from my experience using all these platforms is that whatever you post on Twitter is gone in a day. If people don't interact with it in the first 2 or 3 hours, no one will interact with it because it gets buried in the feed. No one will find it again. Facebook, you have a few days. So if people interact with it, you might get people responding in 4 or 5 days tops. YouTube, for some reason, I put videos on YouTube and then I'll come back like a year later and there'll be another 20,000 views and I will have no idea how that happened. So if you want a really long-term thing, put it on YouTube. But YouTube is probably not a good place to advertise something like an upcoming event because you're not going to get those views very quickly. Here is some actual science communication research on this topic. This is intended for businesses who are trying to actively promote on social media, but I try to use a similar model when I'm communicating my science. They recommend either making or sharing a post on Facebook every single day, 1 per day. Maximum of 2, minimum of 1. If you want the most engagement, post it in the early afternoon. And that's the best way to reach people based on social media habits. Twitter is a little bit more intense. The same site recommends, not more than 51 tweets per day and not fewer than 1, about 15 tweets per day every few hours, which is a lot. And finally, on YouTube, there's not as many nice stats because, unfortunately, the authors of that paper didn't include YouTube. But if you're making something like an entertainment video, if you're advertising for a movie or something, which presumably we're not doing as frequently as something like Marvel, they say to do that once every hour, once every day at the least. Versus something like if you're making an educational video, one per week, one per day is really good. So of course these are the recommendations for like a full-time social media manager. But it's good to think about when you're thinking of, how frequently should I be sharing this message over and over for it to reach the most people. All right, so you've crafted your favorite post, you've added a poll or a game to, engage people, you've reposted it frequently enough that people are engaging with it. How do you know if you're successful? So on Facebook, let's say you share a joke about the statistics platform you use, you can actually see, the number of people who like it. A few people will comment on it. Some people will share it. You can see those statistics. On Twitter, it's similar. You can see the number of people who share it or retweet it. You can see the number of people who like it and who those people are. You can also click this little analytics button, and that will tell you how many people had it up on their screens, which is the impression, the people who engaged with it or the people who clicked on it or read it, and that includes, liking it, retweeting it, clicking on your profile or the hashtags. So that's a pretty good way to see how many people you're reaching and to get a sense of what sort of community you're interacting with. Twitter also has their own built-in analytics machine. So if you go onto the desktop version of Twitter, there's this free analytics where you can look at your account and you can see how many tweets have you had in the last 28 days, how many people have seen those tweets, how many people have visited your profile, how many followers you have, etc. There's also some other platforms. So this is a website called Social Bearing, where you can look at different profiles for Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, whatever you are trying to connect with people on. And it'll give you way too many statistics about it. So it'll tell you, how many tweets you have total, how many tweets per day you average, how many followers, how many people you follow, the ratios of tweets to follower, and all sorts of stuff that you probably don't need to know unless you're doing this professionally. You can also set a time frame, so in the last 120 days, see how many tweets you've posted, how many people you've reached. You can sort your tweets to see which ones were the most liked or the least liked, see what people are responding to. You can look at tweets by sentiment. So based on the words that you use, how many of them sounded positive versus bad? So something like predator would end up in this terrible category, which is odd. How many different links are you sharing to different domains? So something like from the Audubon Society website, how many times am I sharing something from Audubon or from the blog we run at Kansas State, Science Snapshots? And finally, you can make things like hashtag clouds, like which hashtags am I using the most frequently? Which words am I using the most frequently? Again, this is probably a level of detail you don't need to know, but it's nice to know that these tools are available, and it helps you get a better sense of how people are seeing your social media feeds than you would get if you were just posting it and not interacting with anything from there on. YouTube has a similar metric, so you can actually go into their analytics section. You can look at videos on their own. It'll tell you how many views you have. It'll tell you how many comments, how many people like it. You can actually then go to individual videos, see how many minutes people have watched this, how that's changed over time, how long people stay watching your video. So this is a half-hour-long video, so you really lose people. So you want to put that message where the most people are. See how many people are viewing it, right now or in the last 48 hours, and then see where they're finding it. So this particular, collection of warbler videos people are finding after watching this National Geographic Guide to Birding in North America video, or this Wonderful World of Warblers video. Again, kind of allowing you to assess where your communication effort is falling in this broader scheme of science or conservation or any sort of education that you're doing. Another way to look at engagement is actually to see how often you're contacted. So this cowbird egg article that came out in Audubon came from a rant that I had on Twitter, because I study cowbirds, so I get really angry when people kill cowbirds. And so the author actually contacted me, and I was interviewed for this article, and I helped them set up other interviews. And so we have this, out published now because of something I put on Twitter. Or here, my fiance spent the last summer trying to track baby birds, and instead all of them got eaten. And so he complains about that on social media, and the editor of the Journal of Animal Ecology, this big scientific journal, contacted him and asked him to write a blog post about that. So he was able to talk about his research in a little bit more broad capacity because he complained about it on Twitter. Another thing, so this is an issue of Birding magazine that talks about the grasshopper sparrows we study. And the only reason this issue happened was because, again, I was contacted over Twitter by someone who wanted to talk about grasshopper sparrows. So we brought the reporter here, she took photos, she wrote this story, she painted some birds. It was really, really cool. So that's another way to look at your success. And it doesn't happen quickly. I've been doing social media for a long time, but I'm at the point now where every single week I'm asked to give talks, I'm asked to contribute data, I'm asked to write new publications. It got to the point where every single professor that I talked to join their lab as a PhD student, they all knew me from Twitter. Which is really helpful for my career, and it helps me teach other people. So all around, I've had a pretty good time with this. I do this with the help of some third-party applications. So TweetDeck is my favorite. It's this overwhelming website, just called TweetDeck.com, and you log in with your Twitter account, and it has all of these feeds running simultaneously, where it's like the activity of the people I follow, my home stream, where it's like things that are retweeted and shared by the people I follow, as opposed to just which is included in the activity. Notifications where people respond to me or like me directly. But most importantly for me, it allows me to schedule tweets. So I can write a tweet, I can add images and media, and then I can schedule it. So if you're supposed to tweet every single day, I'm not going to be able to do that with my schedule. So I'll sit down for like 2 hours and I'll write a lot of tweets and schedule them for the next few days, and then I don't have to worry about being on Twitter, but it looks like I'm continuing to engage people. So like right now, my TweetDeck, I have tweets scheduled out until like the 15th of July, just in case I get too busy to actually go on Twitter myself, which is really helpful. There's also some other sites, like let's say you really want to share something from Twitter onto Facebook, but you know that a lot of people on Facebook don't use Twitter. So I use the site Wakelet, which allows you to just pick tweets, put them in one standalone URL. So if I want to, say, make a website that's just all of the March Mammal Madness, March 18th results, you can put 177 of those tweets into a single URL and then share it for people who aren't on Twitter, which can be helpful. Hootsuite is an app and a website that functions a lot like TweetDeck, but allows you to go on Facebook and all these other sites and schedule things and plan them. Just a lot of the coolest features of Hootsuite require like a subscription that you have to pay for, so I don't use that as frequently because I can't afford it. There's other neat things. So here's a site called Untweets, which is a free site where you can go and look at the people you follow on social media and see if they're frequently posting, and then delete them if they're not. Because on Twitter, you can only follow 5,000 people. So if you want to follow as many scientists as possible, you want to only be following the ones that are actually using Twitter. And so I'll go through and like clean out occasionally. It's just like a simple, easy, free thing you can do to make sure that you're engaging with people that are actually on Twitter and not just like have an account that they used once in 2012. There's also some other fun little tricks. So here is a thread reader. So you can get threads, like my top thread right now has like 37 different tweets in a row, which can be hard for people to understand and to read. So if you just reply to that tweet with this handle and the word unroll, it'll produce a URL that makes it like a storybook. So you don't have to actually interact with Twitter. It's just another fun way you can share it with other people outside of social media. And you only like start using these things once you get rolling, but it can be really helpful to know that they exist. So finally, if I was making like a perfect post about, education or science, what would it be for each of these platforms? And so if I was going into Twitter, which again is where I do most of my SciComm, my science communication, what would it look like? So I'd probably have some sort of captioned visual media. I'd have a photo that I, put a description on for people who can't see the photo. Of course, it has to be under 280 characters. You have to really think critically about the words that you're using. I'd make sure that that message is jargon-free. So I'd use words that, you could understand if you hadn't made it out of 3rd grade science, because I want to reach that broad of a community. I'd use the relevant hashtags to connect me to different topics like hashtag birding or hashtag conservation. And then I try to do some sort of game or engagement tactic, like add a poll, add, maybe have this be a series of tweets, asking someone to help identify a bird or something like that. It can be silly. It can be fun. Just get people interacting with your things. On Facebook, I recommend targeting groups, because if I just put a post on my normal Facebook page, it's going to just go to my aunts and uncles, generally. It's not going to go to like an audience that I want to target with my message. So, there's all sorts of birding groups in Ohio. There's the Ohio Birding Group. There's the Ohio Backyard Birding Group. There's Ohio Chase Birds. There's all sorts of people interested in birds or nature or conservation that you can target. And you can put these posts in those communities or share them to those communities rather than simply just putting it on your own Facebook page to go and die, which is what everything does on mine. So again, I've captioned some visual media. People like photos. Their eyes will catch on those faster than just words. You can make a long message. It doesn't have to be limited, but put that punchline up top like it's a newspaper article so that people know exactly what you're talking about if they don't want to read the whole paragraph, because they won't. You can link to other media, so share some photos, but also send links to your YouTube channel or to the website of your Audubon Society, whatever you're trying to advertise. You can put as many links as you want in Facebook. There is no character limit, so do it. And again, target this all within a particular group. You're not going to reach a ton of people when you're limiting it to just your friends on Facebook. So if you want to reach a broader audience, find them in these Facebook groups. Finally, on YouTube, how would you communicate with YouTube? This has been, of the 3, the largest black box for me. So have some sort of catchy descriptive title. So, if it's about a bird walk or about something like, like beautiful warblers at McGee Marsh, something like that, that people will respond to. You can set those little video thumbnails. So when you upload a video on YouTube, it'll generate like a little square picture of a frame in the video. And you can choose between a few options, or you can just upload your own. So you should get a good-looking thumbnail that accurately advertises the contents of your video, but just make sure that you don't make it too good if your video is not. So I have these really cool snake videos, but they're really grainy. They're from these low-resolution cameras. And so I wouldn't put a beautiful picture of a snake that I'd taken with my own personal camera if the video then is going to be this really grainy footage, because people are going to be mad about that. So try to make it as nice as possible without being like falsely advertising the quality of my video. Use closed captioning. If you have audio, make sure that people who are hard of hearing can understand what's going on. Make sure you upload it with the highest quality settings possible, which is an option when you upload, to make sure that it looks good on every screen. Put tags. So if you want to reach a community that'd be Googling about snakes or birds or predators or conservation or wind energy, whatever you're talking about, put those in the tag section so that when people search that in YouTube, it'll pop up. Put all your videos in a big playlist so that folks can find more of it, which can be really useful. And then, add captions with links to other accounts. So, if they want more information, they can go to your Audubon website. So finally, I have no idea how I'm doing on time. I normally talk really fast when I'm in front of audiences, so I kind of planned that, so I may be way over, so apologies. Basically, use social media to promote whatever you're trying to promote, because there's a larger audience out there. You can hit more people with social media. Even if you don't like using it, it's worth it. You can target different audiences. Remember that they're slightly different on different sites. They have different needs. Make sure you're thinking about their biases and their needs when you're writing your posts. Be aware of your media accessibility. Make sure you're not disadvantaging people with disabilities who otherwise can't interact with your media. So make captions for your photos, make captions for your videos. Do things like that to help folks out. Foster an online identity through hashtags and handles. I try to link all my accounts, so my email is the same as my Twitter hashtag, which is the same as my Facebook, so that everyone can find me knowing just a little bit about me. Engage through Twitter lists, these Facebook groups, these games that you can make, polls. Use third-party apps. Use something like TweetDeck so you don't have to be overwhelmed by having to constantly go on social media. Tag folks. They'll share your posts. That you can share their posts. Build a community that way. Promote your social media off of social media. So talk to people in real life, but then lead them towards the things that you're trying to share online as well. And remember to not just use social media, because not everyone uses this. So if you have a message, make sure it's hitting live audiences as well. Just know that this is a tool that can help you do that. So again, I don't have my little clock up, so I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I can answer questions, talk to folks about any of this, if anyone has any.
Thank you, Sarah. This is Betsy O'Hagan. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. We have just a few minutes, and during that time, I'll ask anyone who's here if they have any questions. And so we have about 3 minutes. Are there any questions?
Sorry.
How do you find appropriate hashtags? Like, it seems like a mystery to me. Like, prairie chicken, is that an already existing hashtag, or should I start one, or
we generally workshop them as a laboratory. So we come up with, the best keywords for jargon-free keywords, and then look on social media to see if anyone else is already using those. So I would search in like hashtag prairie chickens, see if someone's using it. Decide whether you want to connect with the broader community of prairie chicken researchers or if you want like a project-specific one. So for instance, half of my lab works in Costa Rica, and they study these mannequins that dance around, and they're studying the effects of rainfall. So their hashtag is hashtag dancing in the rain. So something catchy, something memorable that you think the people who would be interested in your research identify with. And sometimes that takes, not only searching to see if they're frequently used, but also trying it out in a few tweets and seeing how people respond to it. And then just hammering people over the head with it. Like I've been using Prairie Babies for years, and only in the last year have people actually started identifying it with my project. It's taken a while.
Okay, Mark has a question.
Could we have a copy of this presentation, at least the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, definitely. I will email it to Dr. Augustine and share it with whomever wants it.
Well, with Sarah, this is Betsy again. With your permission, we'll post it to the website.
Yes, that'd be totally fine.
Great. Just copy me in, please.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
This was great. This was great. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, feel free to share this too.
Well, so why don't you do Instagram? I saw that there's more users on Instagram than Twitter.
Yes. So I do use Instagram, and originally I had Instagram and Flickr and Snapchat in this presentation, but as you can see, I'm already way over the time limit with just these three. So Instagram is nice because it's part of Facebook. Most of everything you need to know you can learn from Facebook. So it's just basically like the photo-only version of Facebook, where you just post photos and captions on photos, which means that you have to think really critically about, the sort of things you're conveying through a photo, which can take some time. But I still use it, and yeah, if you want tips on Instagram, I can help with that too at some point.
Money?
Does he have a separation between personal accounts on these media platforms versus professional?
Do you have separate accounts for your personal versus professional accounts?
I do in some cases. So my Facebook is just kind of like a personal account, yet I link it to my professional site in case everyone wants to see my political rants as well. I started with 2 separate Twitter accounts, and you can actually have different accounts in the app and toggle between them, because I first wanted just all of my stuff to be my science, but then I started to recognize the importance of portraying not only the science, but also my individual characteristics as a scientist to show people that young women, that queer people, that these different groups that I represent can be scientists, and that scientists can be real people and have other interests. So at this point, I have separate accounts in case I need them, in case I have like super controversial opinions, but for the most part, I send it to like one big account. I do have like a separate Instagram that's just like pictures of my pets and my family, because I don't think people would care about that as much.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. That's fantastic to hear that opinion on how to do separate versus professional.
Glad to help.
Could we email you if we have big questions? I
Yes.
don't want to bother you with a lot of emails.
Definitely. Here, let me see if I can. So here's my email address. You can still see all this.
You're a phenomenal resource, and Audubon chapters all over the United States really want to hear this.
I know, we need one of you in each chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry I didn't leave a lot of time for discussion. I get really pumped about this. So.
Well, you're very knowledgeable. You have plenty of information. I certainly learned a lot, and I've seen talks like this at national meetings, and I think I've learned a lot still during this talk. So.
I keep going to these science communication workshops, and every time I go, I learn something new from people, and learning from people who work at zoos to communicate science in that way, and like across the board. It's been really helpful. It's helped me write better scientific papers to other scientists. It's helped me talk better to students. It's helped me, across the board. It's been really nice.
Well, thanks again. I think we need to wrap up, but you have a good rest of the day, and thanks for joining us virtually.
Thank you so much. And yeah, feel free to email me any questions, anything like that. Hit me up on Twitter.
Sounds great. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.